Sam Hain waited in the dark hallway, restless, carrying a rucksack of things that might have looked, to anybody else, like the tools a person might use to break into a place. No, 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 no. Frankie, bent as a folded card, sorted through hasps and screws. Gorilla's palms, hands that gripped drumsticks and shifted guitar cabs. Fingers that fixed, cooked, nursed. Rattling now with loose lock mechanisms and keys that didn't fit. You know what this reminds me of, Sam Hain said. They'd got in through a window at the back, and whoever had been in this grand hallway last had boarded over the top glass. It may be midsummer outside, but it was night here. If Frankie would only step out into the day a moment, he could find what he needed right away. But Frankie never wanted to open the door to the outside. Not until they were standing with lock and key and screws laying out ready to secure the squat. A superstition that had grown out of Frankie once having been thrown out of a place, only 10 minutes after breaking it. No, no. Hang on. This could be it, boys, this could be it. Frankie's silver-shaved head tilted downwards. He winked down to a brass Yale right on the centre of his lifeline. What? Cells at New Cross Police Station. Crinkled envelope eyes. A smile with one molar missing. That was the smile. The one that had seen Sam Hain through hangover after hangover. The smile that, seen first time, had started the longest friendship of his life. 18, young and stumbling, with head throbbing, and the gig room rolling around him like a head of lettuce in a salad spinner. Sam Hain had looked into that face and taken Frankie for somebody he already knew. He'd thought Frankie was the same man who'd lent him a balaclava and scarf in Genoa. Firm hands had dragged Sam Hain up from the sticky social floor, and he'd started saying, "I love you," before he'd even made it to his feet. "Steady on," Frankie had said. On their second, more sober encounter, Sam Hain had realised his mistake. But those first few words had been the start of something, and now here they were. Wood Street, Wakefield, Frankie grunted. Doncaster, Hammersmith, New Cross. It could be any of them. They're all the same. You ready? Yep. Sam Hain had one hand inside his bag, his heart beating like an idiot with a set of saucepans. Touched a hammer, a wrench. Fingers brushed the crowbar before he found what he needed. The screwdriver had wriggled its way all the way down to the bottom and was nestling under his other t-shirt. Open it up. Heavy door, all chains and sliding bolts. The swollen wood and metal mechanisms had oxidised red and rusted shut. The whole thing stuck like an ancient jail door. Haven't you got a hammer there? Jesus! Sweat poured off Frankie as though he'd been oiled. Don't just stand there. Get to work on that bolt. My hands, lad. Mind my hands. Sam Hain started hitting, working away at the bolts. Blows exploded along the door, across the floor. He felt every hammer fall in his shoes. That's it, Frankie said. Then he had a hand on the knob, right in the centre of the door. Ready? Pull, Sam, pull. 2 sets of hands working away, hauling at it, pulling a truck's weight, until at last the door came open. Just a nick at first, enough for a golden hair of light to run down the right-hand wall. Nothing's ever simple, is it? Sam Hain could already feel the beginnings of a morning after ache in his chest and shoulders. His belt chafed with salt sweat. This was a solid door, a thing built to keep intruders away. One last wrench, and it came swinging like a backhanded tennis racket. Sunlight, liquid amber on wall and into eyes. Sam Hain blinked. He was looking out into a tangled bower of blooming pink roses and white trumpets of bindweed, leaves brighter than new peas. Twigs and stalks twisting in an arch, branches and boughs in a person-sized nest. And there in its centre, wearing slacks and a golf sweater, stood a bald and cheerily smiling man. "Hello," he chimed. "Are you the new neighbours?" Sam Hain had dreamed of a home like this. Abandoned, bay-fronted, a Georgian thing with double rooms and en-suites. The Boundary Hotel had a faded sign facing the road. It promised tea-making facilities and a TV lounge. Sam Hain had been riding past it on his bike every day for months. He had wanted to check that it really was empty. Life in the slum had made him filthy as an animal. 8 of them in a place with only 3 bedrooms and only 1 bathroom, all of them living on top of one another. He had become obsessed with the idea of white sheets and of making tea and coffee in a room where you never saw another person's face. Floor space enough for a person to tread freely without needing to step over somebody else. The slum had only ever meant to be a house for 3. But things got crowded after Sam had started crashing there after a breakup, and Frankie had rolled up after being evicted from another squat. He'd brought 2 others from the same place with him. Soon there had been a mattress in the living room, sleeping bags on the landing, and they were all always keeping their elbows in, no matter where they were in the house. The sides and back told you this was a working hotel. The sign made it look that way. The windows, the car park. It was only when you really stopped to look, through the exact spot in the unruly twigs and sticks privet, that you could see. A door black and heavy, and always, forbiddingly and very finally, locked. "It needs a fair bit of work," Frankie said, "but we're hoping to be open for business by the middle of next year." "Wonderful!" David bounced on his toes, his head swivelling like a lollipop on a stick. "Me and Barbara have always said, that's my wife, that it would be ever so good if some enterprising young lads like yourselves would get this place up and running again." The long hall, a dusty reception desk with papers left like fallen leaves opposite the bar archway. This opened into the velvety, syrupy catacomb of the guest bar. This place always was such a grand success, always full. It was ever so sad when the Evanses had to give it up. She was ill, you know, cancer. David lowered his voice. They never did come back. "I'm sorry to hear that," Frankie said. "We hope we can do them proud." Sam Hain could choose a room first. He'd found the place, so he could decide which part of it was his. That was the only rule they had. "Nice to meet you, David," he said. He had aspirations for the top of the house, a place right up in the trees, closer to the moon and sun, with light flickering through the greenery. Almost like being outdoors. "Sorry to leave you," he said, "but we've got a lot to do and I'd better get started." Hand on the banister, his skin met a fine coating of dust, which stuck to his palm like fur from a molting cat. He looked into the gloomy, twisting staircase and started up the stairs. Without even being fully awake, Sam Hain knew he was not home. Bed, floor, mattress, sleeping bag. He wriggled his toes. He opened his eyes and looked at the other bodies sleeping nearby. Frankie was closest, snoring as usual. The smallest dog, a black-haired wiry terrier, lay curled between Romy and Stick. Somebody was making coffee. The smell of it got him up, and the dog followed. "Boxy," she said, "Boxy, here." It was Hannah, the sound engineer from last night, snub-nosed and manga-eyed. This dog is such a slut for attention. Always wants to make friends with the touring bands. "You want coffee?" "Please." Sun came into the room from 2 sides, a large window at the front and through the side door. The dogs ran in and out, bringing with them the scent of jasmine. "Pretty sweet squat you've got here," he said. Hannah had the type of face you don't see too often. Appealing and broad, clear-skinned. It was the kind of face that said, "Go on, tell me things." "We're lucky. There used to be another one, not too far from here, in an area marked for regeneration or gentrification, if you want to call it that. That was evicted 2 weeks ago. 15 people were living there. Cops in riot gear went in and hauled them all out. They attacked them with tear gas and everything. Can you believe it? The coffee tasted of hot tar, dried out the inside of his mouth like a bushfire. I can, bunch of fuckers. He coughed and added sugar. That's why we're so crowded here now. 4 of them came to live here and they brought their dogs. So that's also why we have so many dogs. Sam Hain added water from the kettle, but his coffee still looked blacker than an oil well. What about you? He said. For now, we're safe. Nobody wants to build luxury flats here, yet. But maybe one day, once prices have gone up over there, and the developers see that there's more money to be made here, eventually they'll clear us out too, but not yet. We've got a squat in an old hotel, me and Frankie, Sam Hain said. Yeah? Hannah climbed into a chair, bare legs folding over the wood like a cricket's. Do you have, chocolates on the pillows and stuff? She was turned right towards him with this eager, fascinated face that said, tell me, and she smelled gently of coconut oil. How many of you are there? Just 3. I noticed it first, found it. The place is hidden away behind all of these hedges. It's not even on a main road. Wow. Yeah, and when we moved in, we found a load of stuff. All the hotel towels, the name embroidered in the corner, all their matchbooks, guest soaps, tea trays, all that sort of stuff. It was almost kind of spooky the way they'd left it, like they meant to come back later. But then everything was covered in dust. They must have been gone years. Hannah had a splashing tap laugh. You're so lucky. Only 3 of you in a big place like that. Sometimes I wish we had more space here. One of the dogs jumped, slobbering its big, stupid tongue all over her face. So, where do you go next on your tour?